What's up, YouTubers?
Only YouTubers are allowed to listen to this episode.
Only YouTubers. Only if you're a content creator like us.
You have to subscribe to our YouTube to get this episode.
What would y'all's platform be? Would you guys want to do YouTube or Twitch or Facebook gaming?
If we were gonna stream some gaming,
streamers,
if we were streamers,
I was streaming Pokemon on the
I know that your answer, Matthew, is just whatever gives the most money in a contract, but
we'd be going right to Mixer if it was still alive. Man.
Oh shit! You're gonna do the Ninja Mixer? That's
hell yeah.
Yeah, that flopped after what? That had Quibi numbers.
Anyway, great attempt at getting some good content out of us, Jake. But we're sailing straight into it. Hello and welcome back. We're the Tough Cat Podcast. I'm Matthew.
I'm Alex.
I'm Jake. And we all sound like we've been smoking for 30 years, and I love it.
Hey, I was in the sun a whole lot this weekend.
It's almost like the three of us were together and we consumed a lot of liquid substances and did a lot of shouting.
Yeah. Hey, I mean, you're looking at some boys who have freshly seen each other's faces in real life.
Which means we are super charged.
For you listeners, go touch your friend's face if you haven't in a long time.
Do it for us.
Do it remotely.
Yeah. Do it remotely.
This is episode 60, part 3 of our Oscar bracket. Coming at you in today's episode, we've got Malignant versus Mitchels versus the Machines. And 9 Days versus Worst Person in the World. So I think 2 really good matchups.
I genuinely really love all these movies. And with that being said, spoiler warning, we're going to be spoiling these movies. And they are really great movies. I really think y'all should watch them. We're probably going to be spoiling them. If we don't, then yay, kudos to us. But we got to start spoiling things more because we got to be a riskier podcast. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think we really need to take some risks. I think this is going to be really good. And I think it'll be really interesting to see these movies go up against each other because we've watched all the movies and that makes it easier to talk about them.
Yeah.
That is the goal.
Have you not watched all the other movies in our podcast? Have you just not watched them?
No. Skipping movies?
I definitely watch all the movies all the time.
And never do them really out of order.
No, so I do actually usually watch all of the movies. This bracket, we changed the order of the bracket not right before
the movies that were in it.
Yeah, we switched around what movies were in the bracket, and then that forced us to change the order of the bracket. And so I watched Spider-Man in preparation for the first episode when I should have watched Mitchels vs. the Machines and didn't realize the mistake I'd made until we were recording the episode.
Why are they talking about all these Mitchells? What are these robots doing in here?
I thought we were talking about sabbatical.
Moments on sabbatical.
Oh, gosh. Hey, you know what I just realized, fellas?
What?
I'm not saying I am Kino or I'm a cinema god, but for the Oscars bracket, all my movies moved on. So I just want to brag real quick about that.
It's almost like none of my movies moved on because one of them was Jungle Cruise.
Honestly, justice for Jungle Cruise. It had its time in the sun.
Yeah. And okay, Jake's a big fucking cool movie guy. It just goes to show you he's the representation of the Academy in this podcast. It's trample over everyone else's opinions.
Big Academy boy Jake over here.
Even though we democratically vote which should move on.
Even though we democratically vote and I pitched Malignant. Big Academy boy. I'm fine
with that, do you want to introduce Malignant, Jake?
Oh God, I do. Malignant by James Wan.
James Wan?
Yeah. James. Thank you. Look, Malignant is about this person who's she's seeing some shit. She thinks she's looking in the eyes of a killer. And there's a twist and it's spooky. And
that was like the worst fucking summary we've had on this show.
Okay, you summarize Malignant. Go for it.
Yeah, so there's Madison, who it turns out in the giant twist has a secret spooky boy attached to the back of her head that pretty yikes, dude. And Gabriel goes around doing some slaughtering. And Madison is an unwitting participant in the process. until she locks Gabriel in a mind jail.
She also walks like backwards for like a lot of the movies,
and that's
like,
pretty cool.
Good choreo,
and it's pretty fucking
cool.
dope.
Also, it says, as we talked about last time, ACAB. They throw a chair at some cops and
they
pretty
fuck
cool.
up some cops. They just have a whole sequence. If you're ACAB, watch *Malignant*. That's my that's for likers of ACAB. You
With
might
that,
enjoy.
Do you want to also introduce Mitchels vs. the Machines?
Yeah, so Mitchels vs. Machines is about this woman who has some visions and it's real spooky and there's a twist.
That was like the worst summary we've ever had on this podcast.
Okay, Matt. You summarize
Mitchels
Mitchels
vs. Machines.
Yeah, so Mitchels vs. the Machines, released in 2021, directed by Michael Rianata.
Michael Rianata.
You've got this crazy old family that aren't so good at working together, but it turns out that they really love each other deep down. And the robot apocalypse happens, and they've got to stop it. And it's a beautiful, family coming together sort of movie, feel good times with, I think some nice deeper themes.
That was beautiful.
Nice. That was really good.
So,
Right.
Malignant versus Mitchels versus the Machines. Malignant versus Mitchels for, the ease of referring to it.
Yeah.
Where do we stand? How are we feeling? What do we want to talk about?
So I
legitimately just thought you were going to ask us if we were ready to vote.
So are we
based on my amazing summaries, what are we voting for?
So I am ready to talk about Mitchels vs. the Machines now that I've actually watched it again. It's such a good movie, guys. I literally cried in the first 5 minutes of watching it and then cried several more times watching it. I watched it in the middle of the day. I was home alone cooking lunch. And during that first sequence, when the dad picks the moose up out of the box of giveaway stuff. Oh man, it just wrecks my eyeballs every time.
You know what they stole that from? They didn't steal it from this, but you know what it reminds me of? Y'all remember those extra gum commercials? The really intense ones where they're beautiful and they're there's a guy who doodles one of them on every single gum wrapper with this girl, and then he goes to an art gallery. And then he shows them all and it's playing wise men say. There's another one where it's a father and daughter and they go through childhood and he makes her little paper cranes and that's what cheers her up. She just broke up with her boyfriend. Here's a paper crane. She just committed tax fraud. Here's a paper crane. You're fine. Stuff like that. And then she's moving away to college and he knocks down a case in her place and there's drama because she's fighting with him or whatever. And she kept all the paper cranes throughout her whole life. It was really sad, but beautiful. And that's the moose.
Oh, the moose is a paper crane.
Yeah, right?
Wow.
How do you guys not know the extra gum commercials?
Dude, when you said gum commercial, I thought you were going to talk about the 5 gum commercials.
No,
and I was those don't seem relevant to this conversation.
Yeah. Well, mine was also kind of vaguely read. No, it had a father in it. That's fine. I think...
Okay.
Yeah.
Malignant didn't talk about their dad at all.
Remember, we love good dads on the Tough Cut.
We love good dads on the Tough Cut.
Do you think Gabriel would be a good father?
No.
Oh, okay. All right. Cool.
Do you think if Madison had her baby,
is Gabriel technically a baby daddy?
Yeah, I think some Gabriel juice got in that baby. I think that baby had a super malignant.
Well, they did say that the
just
reason
keeps on Russian nesting doll malignant on.
They did say the reason she couldn't have a baby was because Gabriel was hungry.
Yeah, Gabriel kept. He was munching.
He had the munchies.
Real fucked up, guys. Also, do you it's because she just in case I'm remembering the movie wrong, it was only released because she cracked her head because her stupid boyfriend pushed her against the wall, right? He wasn't just chilling back there and she just never washed her hair or something and never felt a little head going.
Yeah, no, because they in the surgery scene they perfectly pushed him back
and they pushed him back in there.
I feel can't be good for her brain,
Well, I think you're absolutely right. Yeah.
And I feel they don't dive into why Madison doesn't have additional horrific issues.
She should have a weird head. She should have the weirdest head ever. I wish she does, but like,
well, she just always has long hair.
Yeah, but she should look like the Peanut people from the Proud Family.
Oh, I thought you were gonna say Mr. Peanut.
Yeah, she should also look like Mr. Peanut.
Oh, guys, could you imagine if Mr. Peanut, the peanut inside Mr. Peanut's head, is Gabriel?
That's my headcanon for Baby Nut.
Anyway, to take us to an actual conversation, both of these movies have...
What do you mean by that?
Yeah, what do you mean by that?
Both of these movies have fairly like over-the-top concluding action scenes.
Yeah.
How do we feel about them? Obviously, we've talked a little bit about Malignant, but we didn't touch on the Mitchells ending action sequence at all last time. And I feel like it's a really, really great sequence. I think we get to see everyone from the family kind of gets a chance in the sun, time in the sun. To do cool stuff. Yeah, so I just wanted to hear your guys' thoughts.
I was going to say, like, almost the exact same thing. Like, why I love Mitchell so much is because, yeah, it reads as a, final act. Like, oh, we're doing the action thing we built up to this moment. But everyone does get to do stuff. And that feels, like, awesome and emblematic as the film's, like, message and at them as a family. Even, like, the little robot dudes, give it up for the little robot dudes. What are their names again?
The
I don't even
Robot
remember.
Sons.
But they're like, I love them because in every scene they're animated to be doing something. Like even if they're not the focus, like even in the little corner, or they'll be like holding hands randomly in a seat or like stuff like it's so good. It's so good, and like everyone just gets to do something, and it just feels like such a big payoff. And while Malignant, wow, there's a lot of fun that goes on. The ending, is so dramatic, and she's like, Gabriel, no! And it's just like, what's happening? What's going on? And we talked about how we wish that, like, maybe they would have left it a little bit more open. Like,
it would have been a spookier version of that ending.
Yeah. But Mitchell's nails that shit because it's just so fun, and it continues having its same spirit. Where like, I love Malignant, that's my shit, but I do feel like it cares more about looking cool and doing cool things as it does care about like really nailing its tone. Like I think it commits sometimes of like, oh, okay, camp or whatever, and then it goes away from it to look just kind of cool, and then it goes back to it, and like it just wavers with its tone a little bit more, where Mitchell's knows what it is, like 100%.
Yeah, I think that's a really big piece of my, not criticism, but my perspective on Malignant really as a whole. Is like it's like a just vibes kind of movie.
Which is a great movie.
Talked about it a little bit before, that it's like if you start to think a little bit about a lot of the stuff, it's like
you're not supposed to think while watching Malignant, and that's why I enjoy it. That's why I really enjoyed it.
Yeah. Whereas like I super agree that like there is like very consistent tone and identity for the entirety of Mitchell's, which I think is like really cool to see. But it's also, I do think that Malignant uses its discordant nature in a really good way at the same time.
Yeah, for sure.
Where it has no business being able to achieve just vibe status as a movie with a backwards walking, trench coat wearing murder head, like, but it does. It gets there.
Yeah. I think what to me Mitchell's does so well is that not only tonally does it feel very consistent, but the characters all feel very consistent, and like they each have very specific purposes that like grow in the final act. Versus I feel like in Malignant, the characters very much are just there to either be springboards for Madison or for Gabriel, which, makes sense because that's what the movie is, I guess, trying to do. But
yeah, I actually haven't thought so much about that, but like nobody has any real characterization in Malignant.
No, but they do have trench coats and vibes. Like, come on.
Yeah, which is, normally that's something I'm like really critical of in movies. But
well,
like,
that's why
literally didn't occur to me till this moment that straight up everybody is like a one-note character.
So that's why it blows my mind, because when we think about this movie, it's bad, but like I enjoy it, and like I have to give credit to a movie that is bad on face value and then no matter what you look at, is like, oh no, that was good. Like I had a good time. Like there's an art to that, and I really think there is purpose. Like there's purposeful intent in the filmmaking of how they did that, and not on the same degree or level of Mitchell's versus the Machines. Like that feels like they still like campaign. They still like everyone feels like they're like writing their notes, and, like, connecting and doing.
There's
that
like really consistent voice in Mitchell's.
Yeah.
So I think like what you're getting at is both of these have a consistent voice, even if it is like Malignant is a weird discordant voice, but like James Wan clearly had a vision for the movie.
Yeah.
And I think
you cannot say he does not
on
have
like what he wanted to show off.
Yeah.
It just so happens that it's a less coherent voice, but it's still a consistent one, I think is the
right. I really hope we
like,
get a Malignant
difference.
2 or just a Malignant series. Like
I would love that.
Okay, well,
but,
in the vein of a Malignant series, we ended episode 1 with a question that I posed to you guys, and I want to know if you thought more about it because we knew it was coming. What would happen if the Mitchells fought Evan, Fabio, and Brian, our Malignant inventions?
Mm-hmm.
I genuinely believe that the Mitchells would turn them good. And that we would just have little Malignants like doing work and taxes and like walking around, fully taking over their host bodies. By the way, like,
but just taking over. Well, so taking over our bodies, but just being chill.
We would not. We would no longer be in control, but we'd be doing good things.
How would the Tough Cut be different if it was hosted by Evan, Fabio, and Brian?
Honestly, they're more diverse voices than we are. You know, we all did comedy together. Like we're all sort of like one note, same vibes. Evan, Fabio, Brian, like one wants to get their child back. Yeah. One can dance really good. Like they just
don't
remember
what
things.
You don't remember what Evan could do, did you?
Water. It was water Malignant, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was water Malignant.
It was Malignant. Malignant. Yeah, I really think either that or just they would become friends. Like I think they would just be homies.
I think they'd get along with the two little baby robot boys, and you know what? Controversial. They would put us in the little robo bodies. Malignants take our bodies over, and then we get our brains put in robots.
That's awesome. That's great. Cool. I'll take that.
So we get to vibe.
I'd love to be a robot who can fly and has a little blaster arm.
Would it be weird though, like us seeing our bodies be Malignant as robots? Like would that fuck us up? I think that fucked me up.
Well, but it's not our face because they come out the back of our heads.
It's the backside.
I guess that's true, and I don't see the back of my head like ever. So
I'm sure your hair would grow out too, and they would have the hair just over your actual face, so it would just be a body.
Oh, so you don't think Malignants like care about their like keeping up hair?
Well, no, but I think they would want to look like normal people.
Whoa. I don't think. I mean, we saw Gabriel looked like.
Is that insensitive? Is that bigoted of me to say that Malignants should look like normal people?
They may try, but I don't think they ever will.
No,
like,
but
I don't think what Gabriel looked like before they razored his face off. You know, like,
and maybe that's
he had like creepy little arms. And did he have a second rib cage?
Yeah, but don't worry about
they
that
like
part.
Snapped off.
Yeah, but
how did that go? You know,
again, we don't think about Malignant. We don't think
I did a quick search, and there are several articles that are like, we don't know what Malignant 2's story will be. It also hasn't been greenlit. So I'm like, yeah, it might stay that way.
Well, it depends. Honestly, unfortunately, like, it's a one for you guys, one for me thing where like he did Aquaman, made a bunch of money. They let him do Malignant. But Aquaman 2 is going to come out, and unfortunately, with all that shit going on, like, Aquaman's probably not going to do well. Or it will. I mean, maybe bad press is good press. Or
do we think that whole controversy is going to really affect Aquaman that much? I personally don't.
That's fair. I mean,
I feel like people who are going to see a DC movie are going to see a DC movie, you know?
Yeah, I think that I agree with that. I think
those
butts will still get in the seats. But I don't, because the first one was like broad strokes, like quite successful, right?
No, it's their most successful movie. It's the most successful DC movie.
Oh my god, $1 billion!
Yeah, it joined the $1 billion club. I think that it's a thing where like obviously it's gonna make like a lot of money and more money than I'll fucking probably ever see in my lifetime. But it's still probably is not going to make as much as it could have made.
I don't think
that's
Aquaman 2 will be $1 billion movie, and if that's where they've set their expectations,
right,
it means Malignant 2 maybe not greenlit. I don't know,
and that's sad.
Maybe James Wan will just stick a Malignant into Aquaman.
That'd be sick.
That would be so. I mean, he put Annabelle. Yeah, I am literally only gonna watch Aquaman 2 to see if Malignant is.
I bet there's gonna be some fish monster that got like a guy coming out of his head.
It'd be awesome. Dude, and so even in Malignant, he had like the, some scenes that are very reminiscent of like
Jason Momoa hanging out.
Yeah, well, I was gonna say the way he films his saw traps, like the woman tied up in the attic, literally looks like a saw apparatus for a hot sec, and then it's like, psych, it's not. But it'd be kind of fun if it had been.
Yeah, no, he loves giving little cues to.
He loves shouting out his other movies,
which is badass of him. He's like, "Go my other movies."
Go ahead. Go ahead, Jake. No, you're good. Go for it.
Okay. Well, I was going to say, part of the reason I love these two movies and why I wanted to pitch them is because for me, I don't know about like for your circles or whatever and the people I talk to, like these are both like word of mouth loves. And I think that's like a very interesting like phenomenon that happens like in film and especially like with cult followings and stuff. I think everyone that I tell to watch these movies like either loves them or has a funny time with them or whatever, but it is like these are word of mouth. Like I saw no ads for like Malignant or for Mitchels versus the Machines. I just like knew they were coming out because of like whatever things, and like I think that's a very awesome thing to happen, but I also it's so curious to me how like word of mouth movies spread and why these two spread and why we like love them so much and why did these two get the cult followings that they have? Because people love them, but it's there's something that I want to explore there, but I don't know exactly.
I think it's a really interesting point. On one side, for Malignant, I think the movie's basically perfectly primed to be like a cult hit. James Wan has like a pretty tight following of people that like love his work, who've been like following anything he directs for a really long time. So I feel like a lot of the people that were sort of like built-in fans of some of his other horror series were probably like likely to want to see Malignant and give it a shot. On the Mitchell side, I don't know like a good way to put it, but I also feel like it's like built to be predisposed to a cult audience in a way.
I agree. Like, I think it's a very like I hate using this word because it's a negative connotation, but like quirky, like it's quirky.
Yeah.
From like the editing to the characters they decide to include, especially people that are like the little brothers neurodivergent and Katie's
like LGBTQ
so like a lot of these like groups that tend to be othered by the mainstream have representation here, and I generally think it's like fairly strong representation where they're just treated like people, like they're they're just like members of this family. Yeah. So I think interestingly, like, I don't want to take the cynical view that these were built to be cult and movies.
Yeah.
But like, I totally understand why they both grabbed like a cult audience.
Yeah, I agree with what you're saying, especially about Mitchell's. But I also feel like, to me, it really doesn't feel like it was made to be a cult movie. Like, to me, it feels
it wasn't like their plan, obviously, right? But I understand where it comes from,
right?
Yeah, it just feels so authentic. Like watching it, it doesn't feel like they just did it to have representation, which is what I think it does so well. Like it handles its characters very well.
Important distinction, yeah.
I don't think Malignant does anything in the same way, but I don't know that it
represents my little demon brain very well. The little ghoul that lives in my nose, I think, really connected to Malignant.
I think Malignant treats any piece of its potentially like tough subject matter with like all the grace of a hammer. It's like, your mom fucking threw you away and got rid of you. Guess what? You should come back 20 years later and fucking stab her in the stomach, dude.
Yeah. I mean, there's an audience for that.
You should butcher a police station, my guy.
There's an audience for that, clearly. Look, it's so hard for me because, like, I have so much fun with these. I have so much fun, and that's what it really boils down to. And I love how also original these two movies are. These like feel like very like their content is original, and like original content's very like difficult to get or that in the mainstream or whatever. Like it's out there. There's a bunch of original content out there, but it doesn't get showcased a lot. And people are always complaining about like, oh, we always have like two. Completely fairness, it's always Disney or whatever, having these big whatever, blah blah blah, Marvel, DC. It's fine, but there are movies like Malignant and Mitchell's vs. the Machines out there, and Jesus, why? Like a couple, like these films are crazy to make, really, and in a great way. Clearly, there's such a big heart and audience and authenticity to them, so it's just wild to me.
A crazy fucking red alert. Madison is Madison Mitchell.
Oh shit!
Oh shit!
Wait! Oh shit!
Oh shit!
A startling revelation in the final quarter.
Wait!
Oh my! What is this?
Do you think these are like their PNW cousins?
What does it mean?
Wait, Madison Mitchell.
What does it mean?
So are we all?
I think they just kind of both advance.
I think this is it.
They're a shared universe, right?
Well,
what if Mitchell's... Wait, okay,
process.
guys. What if we've cracked the code and Mitchell's vs. the Machines 2 that we know is in production is Mitchell's vs. the Machines vs. Malignant?
I mean, it keeps with the M.
It
like
keeps
it's
with
literally
the M.
like
we know that Malignant 2 hasn't been greenlit, and maybe this is why.
That would be... I'm here for it.
Guys, look,
that'd be insane.
I am ready to vote, and I have a complete thought process that actually like it made me feel better because I was genuinely tormented. I feel so confident in my vote.
Yeah, I could vote.
I'm ready.
There's so much more that I would love to talk about these movies with.
Yeah, I mean,
for example, we barely dug into the startling revelation that no one in Malignant has any character. And that's maybe for next episode, we'll see.
We'll see. Well, what would you like to vote for then, Matthew?
Yeah, I guess I can go first. I'm going to vote for the Mitchells versus the Machines. I loved Malignant, but I would have put Mitchells in the bracket if you hadn't picked it. Yeah, I think it's such a beautiful and passionate movie, and
right.
It was just great.
How about you, Alex?
I am also voting for Mitchell's vs. the Machines. This one was close for me, but I think the revelation that it's going to be Mitchell's versus the Machines versus Malignant rather than just Malignant 2, Malignant versus the Machines. The story carries on through Mitchell's versus the Machines, not through Malignant. So I have to give it to Mitchell's versus the Machines.
And so my thought process, my thought process here, because I will also vote for Mitchell's versus the Machines.
Whoa.
But because I love so much credit to Malignant, so much whatever. But here's the thing: Malignant's Malignant, right? Gabriel's always attaching himself to the head. So no matter what movie wins, we have to say parentheses Malignant because it's crawling its head in the back of its win. You know, it'll just be there. Like
you don't see
parasite.
Gabriel attach him to other people's heads.
Nope, too bad.
That we would have probably seen that in Malignant too. I think we can all agree on that.
Well, we'll see it in Mitchell's versus the Machines versus Malignant. Almost
if we saw little Gabriel crawling around his little body,
and he just has to use like his little mouth to pull himself because he
because they cut his arms off.
Yeah.
Watch Malignant, man. It's a ride. Honestly, hey, Tough Cut listeners, you know that Alex doesn't really care for horror, and he liked this one, so that speaks some volumes.
It was pretty funny.
And I speak to all the James Wan fans out there. This movie fucking rocks. If you've already seen it, with that,
congrats to Mitchell's.
Yeah, Mitchell's moves on. We'll jump to the other side of this. And I will introduce Worst Person in the World. So Worst Person in the World, released in 2021, directed by Joachim Trier, follows Julie, the worst person in the world, air quotes, because I didn't emphasize that last time. A young woman who navigates the troubled waters of work, love life, aspirations, and so much more. In an attempt to understand how she fits into things in this like turning 30 coming of age story. Yeah, Alex, if you'd like to, or not Alex, Jake, if you'd like to take 9 days.
I can take it. I'll take it. I'll do it.
Take it. Take it. Well, I'll describe it first, and we'll see if you can do a better job.
Okay.
So 9 Days, directed by Ed Sonoda.
Ed Sonoda.
It's about this woman. Yeah, it's about this. It's about this woman who starts seeing visions, and there's a twist, and it gets real spooky.
That was perfect.
Yeah, I couldn't have said it better.
Let's move on. Let's move on and vote. What's 9 Days about, Alec?
They are people, but they're not people yet, and they're trying to become people. And Winston Duke got to make a big decision.
True.
But he be going through it.
Also true.
Yeah. I mean, it's
okay, I have a question.
Days.
I have a question. 9 Days. Very clearly the name. It's called 9 Days because they got 9 days. That's how long the decision process makes. That's how long it takes. Worst person in the world. Why called that? Because I don't really get it.
So here's the thing. I actually wanted to ask you because you've introduced this movie, Matthew, as like she's the worst person in the world. I didn't get that as like the reading of it, especially because there's a line where the guy, I forget his name, he feels like, I feel like I'm the worst person in the world because like I can't like, whatever. He says he is, and he's the one who gets dropped as that. She never gets called that. She never whatever. Maybe like because it's the title.
That's crazy that neither of you got that. Like that blows my mind. Like it's literally meant to be like a tongue-in-cheek. Like Julie clearly does things that are bad through.
Like she's not supposed to be likable, but I thought they were turning it on the head of like.
Yeah, that's
we
literally
think
what
she is. Yeah,
that's exactly what they're doing. That's why I put the air quotes around it.
The quotes because it's like okay,
she may perceive herself as being a bad person, or us as audience may perceive her as being a bad person. But at the end of the day, she literally isn't the worst person in the world. Far from it. She is a perfectly normal human being, just a complicated one.
Right. And I thought they were like going, because I got that. It's more that I thought they were going for with the title that like the people around her feel like she's making them feel like they're the worst person in the world by how like her interactions make them feel like a little bit like, I don't know, it's hard, it's tough. And so like, there's more nuance of that being beyond where it's like, yes, when we see the title, we see her do these things. Sure, like, no, is she like the worst person in the world, whatever, blah, blah, blah. But like, it's not really that. Obviously, she isn't the worst person. And then they have the line where he says, I feel like I'm the worst person in the world. And it's the people around her feel that way. Like they are being
I think it's meant to be a reflection that we all kind of see ourselves as like the worst person in the world at times.
I don't. I'm sick as hell.
Which, like it's congratulations on being in mentally very good shape, Alex. Not all of us have gotten
That's
there.
actually great though. No, like let's take note and like I'm really happy that you're happy.
Oh,
like that's awesome.
No, I don't know. For me, it didn't. I don't know. A lot of things in this movie, I think, just like I don't know if it went over my head. If I just like didn't vibe with it for whatever reason. I talked about it last time, but I don't know.
Which is totally fair. I guess I understand not liking it. You're certainly allowed to. It just, I really appreciated this movie. I thought it was really well acted, really well written, well directed. Obviously, 9 Days on the other side of this matchup, I think is a beautifully acted movie, a fantastically directed for a directorial debut. It's really impressive.
Yeah. There's a lot of good there.
Something that I think is an interesting point of conversation. Imagining Julie, her soul, before she gets born.
I was gonna talk about this. That's awesome.
Why do we think she got picked?
I think there's like a spark of like this person. It's in the beginning where she's like fighting, trying to do different things, do all these whatever, blah blah blah. Doesn't really know. I think it was really her indecision, but also like doing the life stuff.
Well, okay. I think that it's that if she was a soul, she's not actually making decisions, right? She's seeing a lot of things. And I think the reason she would get picked is because she was excited about everything she saw and like wanted to do everything because that's her character, right? She like is living her life, sees something new and thinks, oh, that would be better, and goes and does that. So I think like that is what her soul would have done.
Sense of wonder.
The sense of wonder
the person
in
who
everything.
interviewed her. Yeah, it's like the Zazie Beetz character. It's like her, where it's like there's so much wonder and beauty about the world, but it's also at least for Julie, it's a little bit more like, oh, I'm willing to pivot and I'm going to pivot hard. And I don't really I'm going to not care about the other thing.
I also think that like in the liminal space that is the before existence selection realm, like obviously we get to see Julie as a person being confronted with like difficult choices and at times being indecisive about them. I think in her head, she would totally be able to think like, oh, this is totally what I would do. Without the knowledge of what it's actually like being confronted with them. And I think that's part of what's demonstrated in Worst Person in the World is she is like, I totally don't want kids. I don't want kids. I don't want kids. But then when it actually ends up in that spot, it's like, oh shit, like there is a lot more that goes into making this choice than I previously gave it credit. Mm-hmm. So thank the world for solving that one for me,
Yeah, totally agree.
Yeah, I really wanted to talk about, because the reason why I love 9 Days so much is because, and these two films cater to each other, like, would Will like pass like Julie, and like Will's like kind of seeing someone be like the worst or like living the way they live, I don't know, would they view her life as like a quote unquote success or like whatever like they're doing? Would it feel like it's,
I think,
like it just feels like Will interacting with Julie's character is like something really interesting to me. Like I
think Will would have a tough time picking Julie. I think he would have picked Askell.
Yeah,
as a soul
for sure.
I think that obviously I think that towards the later end of his life, he obviously finds some sharper edges, but I think that like. There is this, the care and talent deep down inside Askell as a person is something that Will clearly, for a really long time, as he was picking candidates, that was something he valued really highly. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I could see that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree with that. Something I want to talk about, and we touched on both of the endings of these two movies last week. Mm-hmm. Do you, very clearly we talked about how 9 Days, I think, is meant to be like triumphant, right? Do we think that... How do we think that Worst Person in the World's ending compares to that? Because I think it can be read in a way that is triumphant because she is doing something, has found something, and you see like the things around her, even though obviously it ends on a downswing of like these horrible things happening to her. How do we read
it?
It
is interesting because they both end kind of on a downswing of like bad things happen. Like yes, the ending of 9 Days is like kind of a triumphant thing, but I think it's like more sad and tragic, where it's like he said he would only do that, and to do that he would feel alive again. So like the only way he could feel alive was at the moment of her like quote unquote death, the death of her like existent self. Right. And like it's really sad and really upsetting. And in Worst Person in the World, like I mentioned how I didn't fully like connect, and like I wish the ending would have been better, but I think it's because like of that downswing. I think it just didn't connect with. It just felt like the life goes on route, which is beautiful, and that is life, and that like makes total sense for Julie. Like I think the movie makes sense, and it is well written in that sense. But as a viewer, I wanted something else, and I'm still trying to figure out what the fuck that is.
There is this little bit of like viewer, not like blue balling's like the wrong term. I don't know what the right like.
No, yeah,
like everything kind of all comes crashing down, and then we get this like little bounce to time skip later, and it's like one COVID.
That's why. Yep.
And two, it's just like she's at least found a career, and she might not be with anyone, but there is. Right. I think that there's this like hopeful perspective that it has, which I think that is where I see both of these endings. Just to elaborate on where I see that in 9 Days is obviously Emma ceases to exist. And they give this big monologue, the, triumphant ending. But the hopeful bit is how it reflects and potentially changes Will, because clearly she has imparted something significant on him that will color his choices going forward. Because the movie, I think, spends a lot of time on the fact that Will is just like, he is a human. He is flawed. He is the worst person in the world in his own right, and will make bad decisions at times, or make decisions that are colored by his own experience. And Emma has like imparted some of herself onto him in the permanent reminder of what she represented. And I think like that is like an up tilt on what is an otherwise extraordinarily sad ending for Emma is, I think, undoubtedly one of the most endearing characters in the cast.
Amazing. Zazie Beetz is amazing in it.
Yeah, like I don't think there are going to be people cheering that Kane is the one that gets to.
Well, that's another thing that I wanted to interject if I can. Like it's when we were talking about how like Julie also doesn't get in the Worst Person. Like we can't really like feel good or cheer about it. But also in 9 Days, we don't get the person. I feel like, if I'm speaking for myself, that I would want to be get picked at like ultimately the end, and they tease it too, and like obviously Kane gets picked, and it is beautifully like, yes, that was probably the right choice for this movie, but it's still sad because it's like also viewership blue balling of like, we went through this process. We're rooting for different people. We're like, oh my God. And still the person who did the other things and like did questionable things or whatever. And I think that's why the scene I think it's so brilliant that they brought them together so we could see them interact. I thought that was like a brilliant way to empathize of like these two characters and like watch them. But yeah, it is. I don't know. Now I'm like questioning myself because like I still get blue balled in 9 days, but I like it better in it than I do in Worst
you
Person.
Also just didn't like Worst Person's ending generally, which is fair.
Yeah,
like you're allowed to.
Well, it's just because I'm left with something, but I'm left with something there too. So I'm just like I'm trying to figure out why.
What I think is so interesting is that both of these movies do this thing where something like bad happens to the characters and it changes the perspective of someone else. Where like in 9 Days, obviously it's Winston Duke feeling alive again, realizing, coming to terms with the way that he is making decisions and like fully accepting responsibility of like what is going on, you know, versus I think in Worst Person in the World, we see, I can't think of the second boyfriend's name, but
Alvin.
Yeah. She sees him outside the window with a woman and a child. And I interpreted that as he was changed by the miscarriage and felt like realized that he wanted to have children. And so I think it's just fascinating to see the way that these movies go about discussing how people change and the way that their feelings and emotions change. I don't know. I think that I like the way it's done in 9 Days, I think more because the change happens to a character who we really like see his emotional journey throughout. We don't see that as much with Elvind or whatever because he's not the main character of the movie.
Sure.
But I don't know. It's really fascinating the way Worst Person in the World does it as well.
I think to speak a little bit to the credit of how that particular element is portrayed in Worst Person in the World is I think that the movie in a lot of ways, I think strives to have like realistic emotional touch points and like in the way that the dialogue is written and a lot of these other pieces. I think that is a very real response to the events that he would have been faced with, to his relationship with Julie would be to sort of reevaluate his own life.
Definitely.
And I do think that there is some appreciation that like our lives become a tangled web of connections with everyone we know. And, you know, I do think there is some of this element of like life goes on sort of thing. And I just think like, how they choose to portray Elvin's change there is very in line with how the movie has like stylistically operated.
Definitely.
You know?
Yeah.
And I think that consistency is something that I really appreciate seeing, which is not to say that I think that Will's change in 9 Days isn't well done. Because seeing, you know, him come from like the cold and trying to be really, you know, objective about the process.
Yeah.
You know, like that change to like opening up a little bit more again is really well portrayed.
I think too, this is something I just thought of. This is something I just thought of when you were explaining it, was like how Will's demeanor is mirrored by like the house and the setting, because in the like beginning of the movie, it's always at night. It's like dark the whole time. It's inside the house for the most part. And then at the end of the movie, he like comes out into the sun. Oh, it's real good, guys.
I think, and I also like with Will's change. It's super interesting to me, and that's why it's like stylistically, I really love the opening. I love the opening of both these movies actually, but the opening of 9 Days, we see Will as warm and like also appreciating beauty in the beginning. Like he is. It's only until, you know, the heartbreaking realization and like the sweep under the rug that Amanda died, and then he's like all of a sudden, what the fuck happened? He's cold. He's like, whatever. Like, I still think there's like a warmness, at least in the beginning, we see the potential of him like appreciating life. Like we see it because he loves, it's like clear the affection that he loves this person, or there's some kind of connection. And then it gets unfolded. And then we see it like immediately he's cold, and then we work back up to it.
I mean, by the time when they have that very first set of interviews, he is exclusively conducts himself like in a really cold and analytical manner. And that's before he knew that Amanda killed herself. Like,
no, I say when
so
she
like I'm
died,
not sure
it's before that. It's just the opening. I feel like just the opening. We see a glimpse of that. Yeah, I think like they do a good job of like showing that he can appreciate, like it's showing he literally appreciates his life and like in a way.
Well, I think too,
that he's like so.
I think too, her death is like because all of the other people he has are like going through something very difficult at the same time, right? Like there's the kid being bullied, the one in the wheelchair. And so I think he, like, part of why he holds Amanda up, partially it's her talent and her success, but I think also it's that, like, she has had a good life. Like, she hasn't struggled. And that's why it's so devastating to him when she dies, because then it's like, oh, everyone, no matter what I do, every single person is going to have a hard life. And then to find out that she killed herself, it is like this double blow because he thought that she was a success.
I think there's also this piece that Will specifically sees some of himself in Amanda. Like she is the same gentle soul that he perceives himself to be, which is why it's additionally so painful to see someone that you can put yourself in your own shoes. And also, I think relates to, like, it's not explicitly mentioned in the movie, but I feel like it's very possible Will had also killed himself.
Yeah, that's what we talked about. Yeah, that's how I read it. I think
that's like an additional piece of why this particular one is so hard on him. Especially once the realization that she committed suicide is a thing. But that's a really, really cool point in the framing. I feel like it's a movie I want to watch again.
Watching it a second time, I was really scared just because like I held it to such a high standard to myself when I watched it. It really meant so much to me. But watching it again was really satisfying and really good.
Nice.
Two things that I want to like mention and praise about these movies before going in and like trying to decide what to do. One thing that was really interesting you were talking about before, I think it's really interesting that both of these that we have, and as a matchup, we're lucky, are like these in a weird way, like life goes on movies. And I think like their conclusions that they reach, even though Emma did not get a life, but life does go on. Kane will have a life. Will continue to do what he does, and Julie has like. These movies are both about life and that life goes on and what conclusions we make about, okay, how do we live and like what that means to continue living and like keep going. I just think it's beautiful that they're similar in that vein. And I just thought it was a cool comparison to make.
Yeah, I think it's like it's a super cool matchup, and I wish we could talk more because I have lots more thoughts about both of these movies. However, we should vote.
Yeah,
we should. I also I love the writing in both of these. Like it's really like. They're the two that I wrote the most, like just lines, you know, like it's good.
If we're ready, I can start us off.
Yeah, go for it.
Go for it.
I will be voting for 9 Days.
Fair.
Thank you. Indubitably.
Thank you, Chef.
Thank you, Chef.
Yes, Chef.
Thank you, Chef. Yes, Chef. Do you want to go next, Matthew? I feel like I'm
go for it.
Middle camp here.
Go for it. All you.
Off the record, it's tough because that could mean that Matt is also voting for 9 Days, but it also could be brain games to get you to vote for worst person in the world, so worst person in the world can move on.
He's playing mind
Why would
games.
I ever play games with this? I respect the sanctity of this show. Philosophical consistency's been my name from episode 1.
Right. I mean, I do like both these, but at the end of the day, there's still a big piece missing for me, the worst person in the world, so I'm voting for 9 Days. Yeah.
That leaves just me. I am also voting for 9 Days.
Hey.
I love Worst Person in the World. I think it's a fantastic movie that people should watch. However, I think 9 Days as a complete package is just like a superior film. But I think there is still a lot of beauty and a lot to get out of Worst Person in the World.
I think a lot of people like would really benefit from watching like that movie. Like I think it's a very good movie to watch for certain people.
Yeah.
So if you're feeling a certain way, watch that movie, man.
For sure.
If you're about to turn 30, watch that movie, I guess. Jeez.
Yeah, honestly, that's what it's all about. With that, 9 Days advances. So we've got a Jake versus Jake finale with Mitchels versus the Machines versus Malignant versus 9 Days, which should be really, really fun. But as you guys, I'm sure, have learned who listen to this show, we'll also have honorable mentions.
Oh, shit.
So if there's anything you think we missed, let us know on social media at ToughGutPod.
Yeah, it could be anything and everything of the last year, documentary, like animated, like literally throw us your favorite.
If
shit.
you made a YouTube,
I'll talk about
like particularly good Twitch
What's up,
stream.
YouTubers? We're gonna go talk about our poops today. We're comparing poop
stream. Yeah, even if you're just going to tell us the movies that actually won in the Oscars, we'll still take your itsy bitsy
We'll talk about it. We'll talk
recommendations to heart. Beyond that, if you enjoyed today's episode, share it with someone that has a tiny face on the back of their head. Like, I don't know.
share with someone whose face you want to touch.
Touch
and then touch their face.
Touch some friends' faces. Both of them.
If you enjoy the show, remember to comment, review on all your favorite podcasting platforms. We need some more reviews, dude. I've been told they help by the internet. Yet again, the funniest thing to happen in this show is some dumb shit. Jake is slurping a fingy.
He's just like,
this isn't video content.
He's just sliding it in and out of his lips.
I think I have an oral fixation.
Yeah, and it's like a hot dog sized finger. He's really slobbering on it. He's going. I think you could fit that whole thing in his mouth. Ooh.